Ancient prophecies speak of a time when the world will stand on the edge of chaos, of a coming Messiah, an Antichrist, and a final battle between the sons of light and sons of darkness. From the Dead Sea Scrolls to the Book of Revelation, from Jewish mysticism to early Christian visions, these ancient texts may hold the keys to understanding our world today. Are we living in the time of Gog or Magog? Let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome back. I'm in a different setting today. I sit in my friend's house in Chicago. I'm gonna talk a little bit later about this house and my dear friend. But today I want to talk about, kind of explore a little further about the history of cycles and what kind of cycle we're living in. So I made a video. It's actually my most popular video right now about the fourth turning. Basically, it's a concept popularized by Howie and Strauss. It talks about that basically there's certain cycles in history that repeat themselves every 80 to 90 years. And those big cycles called seculums could be broken into smaller cycles of 20 to 22 years each. So 4 cycles of 22 years each gets you to 90-year cycle. I also want to kind of correlate this to generations, kind of like generations of people, to your parents, to your grandparents, to us. I'm an old Gen X, old millennial. A very kind of like at the end of millennial, born around 1980, at kind of the border between millennials and Gen X, so I can identify as both. I am generation fluid, if I can say that. Just to run through it. So basically, we are current. If you can read a book by Neil Howie, it's called The Fourth Turning Is Here. Really great book. Kind of makes sense of all the upheaval, wars, societal breakdown. International tension, collapse, wars, trade wars, hot wars that are happening right now. But I want to take a little bit of a different take on this today. So besides talking about kind of like geopolitics and economics and how it affects you, and I'm gonna talk about it at the end of the video, but those things I'll touch. But I want to touch about kind of a spiritual aspect about it. So coming from a kind of a mixed culture of Christians and Jewish people, I can kind of relate a little bit this cycle to both Christianity and Judaism. So Judaism talks about a very interesting concept that's kind of going to happen at the end of times, which I basically relate to it as the end of a big cycle. So I think we are coming to an end of a cycle according to Neil Howie, which is the fourth turning. So that cycle happened before in 1930s and 1940s, and it ended with a great with World War II, and Great Depression and World War II. And that's usually how cycles end. They end with one or three things. They end with either hot war, external war, some kind of an internal conflict, could be civil war or serious internal breakdown, or an economic collapse, right? So in 1930s, we had a Great Depression that led to the breakout of World War II, right? So we probably going to be living through something similar to this. Now, as Mark Twain said, history does not repeat itself. It rhymes, right? So we're going to be living through some rhyme of that. So what do we, if I can relate some Jewish themes to this, the Jewish mysticism, right? The hidden book of Kabbalah. Now it's became very popularized, but it's a mystical book. It's been hidden for hundreds of years, and it's never been translated to any languages besides Aramaic. Aramaic is a language that Jesus spoke, and it's been only recently, I think, in the last 50 years, translated to other languages, among them English and Hebrew. And it talks about an interesting concept. It talks about the war of Gog and Magog. And it comes from the prophecy of Ezekiel, and there it talks about kind of the final confrontation between two nations, and those nations. It talks in very mystical, very hidden, very veiled terms, and those nations will rise against Israel, and basically Israel will be attacked by multiple nations, and this is going to be as part of I'll pronounce it in Hebrew. It's called Chevlei Mashiach, which is messianic birth pangs. But basically, through this conflict, it will be led to some other spiritual confrontation dimension between good and bad, and its war will revolve around Israel, the country, Israel, and the Jewish people, and it will basically will be part of the end of the cycle. Now, I do believe in cycles. I think the history is not linear, and it's not circular. Right? It's more like a spiral, right? Spiral goes up, then goes down a little bit, and then goes up again, right? But I do believe it's in the history it goes up, it spirals up, right? So we're living through one of those spirals. I also want to talk a little bit about the Christian perspective. Again, I was very fortunate to learn with friends of mine who are really have an exceptional knowledge in Bible, and they kind of told me about the Messiah, the false Messiah, the book of Revelations that predict wars, plagues, kind of like also one world system that will try to dominate the world, not in a good way. I think if you look around, if you look at the both Christian kind of like description of the last cycle, and you look at the Jewish description, I think we recognize a lot of themes in our modern world right now. Whether it's kind of globalism, right? It's one philosophy, one theory, one government, one group of people, whoever they are, they call it Davos or elites, whatever you want to call them, leading the world, right? Maybe not very openly, maybe it's more kind of like under the radar, but you definitely can recognize the theme of globalism. You can recognize the theme of kind of moral decay. I think that's both Judaism and Christianity agrees on that basically at the end of times, and there will be significant collapse of morals, ethics. And the Hebrew Talmud talks about this generation will have the last generation of the Messiah will have a face of a dog. And what does it mean? It means that that like the dog who always runs ahead of its owner, the people are going to be, instead of the leaders of the generation leading the people, it's going to be leaders are going to be looking at public polls and going to be led by the people. Instead of leaders leading the people, it's going to be people leading the leaders. And if you look around it, it's complete. I think it's a very accurate description of our society that is being led by Twitter, by polls, by Facebook, by people being canceled, by all kinds of stuff, right? So you could see that we don't have leaders. We have kind of like people who follow polls and opinions of the mob of the people, right? Instead of leading by example. This brings us to basically the Jewish theme, the Christian theme. The Christian theme is very interesting, actually. Christianity talks about a very interesting concept. It talks about Christ and Antichrist. So another interesting characteristic about an Antichrist, basically, it's going to be a person, an entity, a philosophy maybe, or other things that are going to be rise during this period of instability. So right now, we had pandemic, wars, inflation, social unrest. People are scared, people are afraid, they're looking for answers. So during this time, both a Christian Bible and Jewish Bible tell us that they're going to be a being, human being, most likely. It will come and it will promise peace and tranquility, and it will bring unity for time being. And he will perform forced miracles. That was another thing, but it will not be real. This person will be driven by desire to control the world, and ultimately is going to be attached to the source of evil. Another interesting thing that we see in Revelations 13, there will be this concept of mark of the beast, whatever that means, right? And basically it will be as my quote, no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark. It's completely open to interpretation. I'm sure there are other people that are thinking about this, but I think first of all, we're talking about if this entity, this force, Antichrist, will demand control and submission and some sort of coercion, maybe economic coercion. And I think you could see that basically we are being today, if I can connect it to the themes, we're being more and more dependent on certain technology. I don't know, it sounds conspiratory, bizarre, crazy. But I think just look at AI, right? Or look at AI. Let's take AI for a second. People, it was introduced only two years ago with ChatGPT, right? November, I think, end of 2023, or maybe end of 2022. 2 or 3 years, and already it's taking a world by storm, right? More and more people are becoming dependent on this, and it's infiltrating more and more systems, and it has a great promise. So people think it's going to change the world, find cures, help us save time. We'll get rid of those minutia jobs, all those boring jobs. We're going to be living in a state of nirvana. But I do think that there's a darker side to AI. In AI, it creates dependency. We stop thinking about it, we stop checking. And if at some point, some people do check ChatGPT, but I think the vast majority do not check the facts, check the sources. And I think ultimately it will bring us to an unhealthy state that basically there will be no true reality. You'll have my reality, I'll have your reality, and whatever ChatGPT will decide, it will have its reality that will make the world believe. So I think what we're believing is that we live in this time that basically we have to, as I said, to go to the core, to who we are, discover who we are, connect ourselves through prayer and meditation, through community, few friends, spend time with our loved ones, spend time in person, not on the phone, not on the digital devices, but spend time with them, talk to them, take a walk, play with your kids, and connect to them in a real meaningful way. Be part of your community. Volunteer in your church, in your synagogue, in your community center, help seniors, help children. I think this is, think about how much time you guys spend on myself included, on social media, on phones, right? If we take half an hour a week, and we go maybe volunteer at the homeless shelter, or maybe spend more time with our kids, maybe help our neighbors, our elderly neighbor or something. So I think we can do a lot to help us connect to ourselves, develop resilience and true connection and stability. More importantly, emotional stability during this time of turbulence. I hope you find this video helpful. If you did, please subscribe.